What up, all my people? We back at it. Hey, I'm really excited. Today we're going to continue to think about the work that we're doing around decimals. And in fact, today we are going to be finding the sums of decimals through modeling. So actually, in this case, we are going to be looking for exact answers. We are going to be solving and getting the answer. But of course, in order to do that, and you can see on our screen, we have some models down there. Because guess what? We're doing it by modeling. That is like literally what it says right here. We're doing it by modeling. We are going to actually think about three steps today, though. We are going to estimate first. That is a very important skill. That is why we have practiced it, because it comes in handy for something like this. And then we are going to model and then solve. And then we are going to check in and just be like, yo, is this reasonable? Is this really makes sense what we're doing? So without further ado, let's dive in today. I'm gonna go ahead and walk through the first one so you can watch the process. We'll start with our first example of, let's say we have 7/10 and we are going to add 83 hundredths to that. Okay. So the first thing we're going to end up doing is estimating. So we are just going to get an estimation. And again, remember the concept of an estimation is actually quick, and we want something that's like close and accurate. So like if I looked at 7/10, right? If I thought about that process again, and I'm going to go ahead and come down here real quick. I'm not going to do this for every problem. But again, if we think about that, I have no whole numbers. So this is really showing me between 0 and 1. It's broken into tenths. So I would cut it into tenths. And let's see, this would be like 5/10 in the middle, 6, 7. So this would be 7/10 right here. All right, change the color for that so it sticks out a little bit better. Right here, 7/10 here, which again, if we round that, that's closer to 1 whole, right? That's my thinking in that. So again, we're going to go with this idea of it's about, so I'm going to say it's about 1 plus. And then if we think about 83 hundredths, actually the same thing, right? There's no whole numbers here. So it is between 0 and 1. And this time I'm actually at 8/10, but I'm actually at 83 hundredths. So I would be like right here-ish. If you can see that. Whoop. Which again, that gets me close to 1. So again, if we estimate right now, we should get an answer out of this that is about 2, right? It's about 2. And the wow, that says about. And the reason we do this is because when we go ahead and do the modeling and we do the math, if we have an answer that's nowhere near 2, we might be like, oh, I might have made an error. I might have made a mistake, right? This maybe didn't work. So there's our estimation. So that was step 1. So step 2 is we're going to go ahead and go in here and we're going to model and solve. And that's why you can see these beautiful models pasted underneath us down here. Because that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to start and think about how to put this stuff together. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this so we can like talk more about what we're looking at. So this first part up here, right? I think one thing that's really helpful when we're modeling, actually, maybe we should do that purple because the step says in purple, is I may want to look, I guess it's blue, whatever. I may want to look at my tenths place first because that's what this is saying, right? And if we look at this model down here, this model right here is actually cut into 100 pieces. So these are hundredths. But what I do know, and I'm actually going to focus on this one over here. What I do know is that 10 hundredths makes a tenth, right? So this right here, if I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10th, that's 1/10 right here. So here's a 1/10. And if we look at what we're going to model here, we actually have 7/10. So this was 1, 2, oh, sorry, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually model this by shading all this in, right? This is right here. All this right here is 7/10. That's 7/10 of something. Okay. And I'm not using this model over here because I was just talking about how that was 100. So I'm just going to use this model here. It doesn't really matter. I'm just using models to help. Now, if I look at my next tenth, I have 8. So I'm actually going to change colors so we can see this because now over here, here's 8/10. But instead of just modeling it in this one right here, I'm going to continue to model with what I have because remember, I'm putting them together. So if I have 7/10 and then another 8/10, well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means I'm shading in all this here, right? So that's all 10/10. And then I shaded in another 5/10 over here. Shade, 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 shade. Oh boy. Okay. Well, I mean, the shading could be done a little more accurately. I probably could find a thicker thing to do that. But, and those are my tenths. But then also, look, I have 300s still, right? There's still 300s. I don't know. That's what's a color? It will go here. There's still 300s right here. So that actually is just three of these squares. So 1, 2, 3. And so if I actually look at this model, it tells me what my answer is. So first we come over here, and this is all 10 tenths got shaded. So this right here equals the number 1. And I'm going to add that to these 5/10. And then this right here is being added to those 300s. So when I put all that together, I get 1 and 5300 as the real answer. And then we go back and we ask that reasonability question, right? Is 1 and 5300 close to 2? And actually, yes, that is quite reasonable, right? You could even think money, $1.53 is pretty close to $2. So that feels reasonable. Now, had I added these decimals together and I got like 153 and I knew the answer was about 2, that wouldn't feel reasonable. So yeah, this is reasonable. So there's our answer. So let's move on. I did a lot on the front page. Let's just keep moving on with this concept. I'm going to go to page number 2. To page number 2. And let's go ahead and drop in another grid because that's going to help us model. And then let's think about what our what do they call those things? Oh, problems, decimals, math. Let's think about what we got to do here. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's say we take 1 and 8500ths, and we're going to add 5900ths to that. Okay, so again, step 1, I'm going to estimate. Do not forget these steps. Do not forget to estimate because the estimation is going to help with the reasonability. So as I estimate this out, this is 1 and 8500ths. Again, I would really think about watching the rounding video. I don't want to spend a lot of time going into that, but I'll do a couple brief ones real quick. So again, remember this is, I have one whole, so this is between 1 and 2. And it's hundredths, right? This is hundredths that I'm working with down here. These are hundredths. But again, I could just focus on the 8/10. So I could start by breaking this into tenths, and I'm going to find the 8. So here's 5, 6, 7, 8. So this would be 1 and 8/10, but then it's 85. So 8500ths would be about there. So, oh man, I should do that in another color. So this right here is 1 and 8500ths. That's where it sits on the number line. So when we think about what whole number is it going to round itself to, is it closer to 2 or is it closer to 1? We can see that this rounds to 2. Okay. And then let's go ahead and get rid of these pieces. Oh, that's not the piece I wanted to get rid of, but that's okay. We'll put the line through it there. And then in this case, if we're going to round this number out, we have no whole numbers. So this is between 0 and 1. And then we see 5/10 and then 59. That would actually be about right here. So again, are we closer to 1 or are we closer to 0? And this rounds to 1. So when we start this, I'm going to put up here, actually. I'm going to say we have an answer that should be about 3. So our answer should be about 3 based on our estimation, right? So again, notice I've done all this work and I haven't even done any math yet, which is really cool. Actually, I think that's really cool because I'm already thinking about it. Like I know that 1 and 8500ths plus 59 should get me about 3. But now we're going to go ahead and find the answer itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to model. So that's this next part. We're going to go ahead and model this out. And as I do so, again, here's one whole. So that would be one whole square. So I'm not even going to shade it in. I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to go like this. So that equals 1. And I'm going to add that to, ooh, let's change colors for the tenths. Beep, bop. Okay, let's change colors. So now if I look at the tenths, I have 8/10, so that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? So that would be this whole piece here. And notice what I'm doing. I'm going to focus on my tenths first. So that's this whole section here. And then, actually, I guess let's maybe do a darker green for this tenth. So there's 5/10. So again, I'm gonna start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that actually shades in this whole piece. So now that this whole piece is done, that gets me another one. And then we had 3/10 shaded in over here. And before I even count that out, let's look at our hundreds. So if we come over to our hundreds, we have 500. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have 900s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Which means now, actually, I have another hundredth, right? Let's see, let's get something we can see here. I have one, two, or no, another tenth. Sorry, I think I said hundreds. I meant another tenth. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 now because I filled this whole column up, right? This whole column got filled up 10 or 10 hundreds, which was a tenth. So that's 4/10. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 500ths. And so this is where expanded form and all that work comes into handy because if I put these together, you'll see that I have 2 holes and 4,500ths is my answer. And remember, our estimation was about 3. So again, we asked that question, is this reasonable? And I would say it is. This does make sense, right? Because again, based on how we modeled it and how we put it together, it really made sense. So let's knock this out with one more, but I definitely say this is one of those fun ones where like you get to pause and try to solve it first. And again, I'm not gonna go through like the rounding steps, like why I did it, just to help you out for time's sake. But let's go ahead and drop in another grid. See if we can move this one a little bit. Let's remember our steps. So again, step 1 is we are going to estimate. We will estimate. 2, let's model. Like no matter what, model. Even if you have a strategy, model to help you solve. It's just good to start seeing how you can make tenths and holes out of things. And then again, we ask that question like, is our answer reasonable? Because does it look close to the estimation that we had? So I'm gonna go ahead and write down a problem here. Let's go ahead and do how about 0 and 3300ths, and we're gonna add that to 1 and 8200ths. So go ahead and pause this video and solve this problem and then come back in and check with me. Okay, so hopefully you've gone through the steps. If not, that's fine. You can follow along, but I think it's always good to like check in with yourself and see how you're doing. And let's go ahead and try this out. So step 1, I'm going to estimate first. So again, if I look at this 3,300, that's actually about 0, right? 33 is closer to 0 than it is to 1 whole or 100 because it's hundredths, right? And then I'm going to add that to what looks like about 2. So when we estimate, our answer should be close to 2. So that works. Okay, next I'm going to go ahead and model. So I do not have any holes here. And again, I'm gonna model with this one here. You can't even see what I'm saying. I'm gonna talk about this one over here. Uh, so never mind. I'm just modeling. Okay, so we have 3. Right here, we have 3/10. So again, remember a tenth is this whole piece because this is 1 100th, 2 100ths, 3 100ths, 4 100ths, 5 100ths, 6 100ths, 7 100ths, 8 100ths, 9 100ths, 10 100ths, or 1/10. So this is 1/10. And I have 3 of them. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay, shading is a little off right now. There's 3/10 right there. And this will be easier when you have this work, like the worksheets in front of you, I promise. And then I'm gonna go ahead and come over here and do this tenth right here. So that's 8 more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And maybe I should do that in another color so we can see that that comes from a different number. So I've shaded all this in. Right, and so all of this being shaded in means this is definitely 1 whole. And now let's do some hundreds. So I have three hundreds. Oh, sorry, I forgot to shade this one in over here. How dare I? This was a tenth, right? This was a whole tenth. My fault. My fault. I hope you were like telling me on the video. Hey, don't do that. Okay, and then we're gonna go in, and so this gets us plus 1/10. And then let's go ahead and get in and get these hundreds. So I'm gonna go with three. So one, two, three. That doesn't really show up very good. There's three, and then two more. One, two, right? These are here. And so that gets me 500ths. And then in all of this, one of the things I realized that's been going on is we still have this hole over here in the second problem. So I can just model that out with a whole section. This is one hole right here. So I'm just gonna, here it is, whole thing. I'm not even gonna shade the whole thing in. We know it's whole. So that means I'm adding another one. So when we put all this together to solve, in terms of whole numbers, I have 1 plus 1. So that gets me 2. And then I have 1/10 and I have 500ths. So the real answer is 2 and 1500ths. My estimation was 2. So if you ask, is that reasonable? I would say very much so. In fact, it's only 1500ths away. So we did a good job. So that is how we do this work. This is the concept again of how we're going to add fractions together. First, again, remember to always estimate. Do not skip that step because that's where mistakes happen. Next, today we're just going to model. You may have another strategy already. That's cool. I'm into it. I can't wait to see it and hear about it. But for today, I really want you to focus on how to model them, how to draw them out. And I know I was dropping in these grids, and I think you could always use grid paper. You could draw your own. You could find some on the internet, whatever makes sense. And then after you've done that work again and solving, just check in. Is my reasonable, right? Like we said here, this looks good. My real answer was 2 and 1500ths. My estimation was 2. That is super reasonable. That is not even that far off. If we're talking about money, that's 15 cents off, which is pretty close. So that's that. That's it. There we at. Good job. I appreciate you. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you in the next one.